welcome to our channel of Bluestone Coaching. We're talking about all things women, mental health, emotional health, and physical health. I am Caroline Magaña, and today I have our two experts. We have Dr. Eden, a board-certified gynecologist, and Julia Mateer, who is a licensed mental health therapist. And we are excited to talk to you about hormones, women's hormones. Yay! Favorite topic. So I'm just curious, I'd love to hear, Dr. Eden, what are some of the biggest hormonal shifts you see women face when they go between their 20s, their 30s, 40s, and so on?
Yeah, that's a great place to start when talking about hormones. So hormones are part of God's beautiful design of us, but it doesn't always feel beautiful.
No, it doesn't.
That's for sure. Yeah. So in our 20s, usually 20s to early 30s is what's considered the peak fertility, although you can certainly get pregnant past that. But that's when estrogen and progesterone should be pretty stable and ebbing and flowing. Now, for some women, there's irregular periods and PCOS, but that should be a time of stability in a woman's life as far as hormones are concerned. And then that late 30s is really when some fertility changes happen, and perimenopause can even start. A lot of women don't realize it starts in the late 30s, and it's from progesterone changes, which can, of course, change mood and sleep, brain fog and things. And then 40s is really when perimenopause really hits, and that's when estrogen's changing and fluctuating. And 1 month women will feel normal, and the next month they don't know who they are, and it's just this cycle where different symptoms can really affect their life. So it's just this roller coaster, and that's how God made us. Another way that we have to lean on Him.
Yeah, and from a therapist's perspective, how do you see a woman's mental health shift as her hormones shift?
Oh my goodness, that's such a brilliant question, and I mean we've all experienced it, right? And your moods, so much of your moods are dictated by your hormones. It's interesting when women enter into their 40s, their perimenopausal season, right? They also, many of them are raising teenagers, and many of them become caregivers of their parents. So not only is all this happening hormonally within your body, and your body's changing, and your moods are up and down, and you're not sleeping well, right? But you're also one of the most stressful times in your life because you're taking care of so many people at some of their most challenging seasons in their life. So there's a lot that women in that season of life are navigating.
Wow. I feel like if I could tell, women one thing about hormones, it's just a reminder, especially Christian women, it's a reminder that God cares about our whole health, and that's the mind, body, and spirit. He does care about our hormones. He created us to have those fluctuations. We're not just a soul wrapped in skin. He really cares about our skin and our health. And I don't know, we're fearfully, wonderfully made. I think a lot of times we put health and God in two separate categories, if you will, unless it's something really detrimental. But as far as maintaining your health, but really they all go together.
And I think a really good comprehensive plan for a woman is to make sure that she's got a good team to take care of her, right? So you have your spiritual health, so you're engaged in your walk with Jesus and you're engaged in community, but you also have a great doc to help manage your hormones and so that you're staying healthy. And then you have a therapist. Not that you have to see your therapist every week, but it's good to do those mental health check-ins just to process through the changes that are going on within your body. One of the questions you asked, Caroline, was from a mental health perspective with hormones. I mean, I think for women in their 20s, many women get married in their 20s, and they're having to navigate living with someone while you're having a week in the month where your mood and your behavior can be really volatile sometimes. For some women, they rage during that time, and their and you're having to navigate through your marriage, and your husband's trying to figure that out. So there's a lot of communication that has to happen. I mean, there's just there's so much about being a woman that's so beautiful, but can be challenging because of our hormones.
Yeah. So what are some healthy ways to communicate some of those things? I know when I first got married, I had PMDD, which was really intense. I'd get so angry, and which I'm not naturally an angry person, and I would be just fly off the handle mad. And thankfully I have a very patient husband, but I didn't know how to tell him. I don't think I had the language to say, this is what's going on right now. So what do you guys recommend with, someone who's married and or even if they have roommates or whatever it is, who's having a hard time communicating their hormone changes, or having a hard time dealing with their moods during those times?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I feel like I talk to a lot of women in perimenopause about this specifically, but it absolutely for PMDD or just severe PMS, or really any situation where hormones are imbalanced. Definitely, that's a good point. And communication is key. You'd be surprised how many women don't even really think to do that, because most of the time when they come to me, they're not even sure what's going on. Like, they think they have failed somehow. Like, they're taking this as an internal failure of them. And so just honing in specifically on perimenopause, once I finally explain what's happening and what's happening with hormones, black and white, unemotional, this is what's happening. This month you're going to have all these symptoms of being low, and the next month these are all symptoms of it being higher. A lot of them have this light bulb moment, and we're like, oh, like I can literally think back, this was a month where I had low estrogen, and this is a month where it was normal. And it gives them the ability to like grasp it, like it's theirs, they understand it, so they can say to their partner, I'm having a month where I don't feel as in control. I know my hormones are different this month. This is an emotionally hard month for me. Bear with me, have patience. But first, to me, it's understanding what's happening. Knowledge is power. If you know it, there's a name to it, like PMDD. There's like knowledge there. You're not crazy. You haven't lost it. There's nothing like internally wrong with you. But because there's a lot of shame associated with that, especially when it affects the marriage.
Right.
There's a lot of shame, and I feel like one of the first things that I like to do with patients who are in that spot is we walk through that shame and get rid of that shame so you can move forward, or else you can't. You just feel like you've ruined your marriage. So that's definitely the first step. Get rid of your own shame.
Yeah. I think when you can, for a woman in her 20s and 30s, I think when you can mark your cycle, you can tell when your moods are going to swing. And if it starts really with a relationship with yourself, right? So I know this is coming. I know I'm really vulnerable to mood shifts during this time. I know I could say things or do things that are out of character. So I think a lot of it is having grace for yourself, and then communicating that to your husband. Hey, this week is coming up, and this could be a difficult week. And then I think that really extends that grace. So I think, again, like what Dr. Eden said, having an understanding of your cycle really empowers you to be able to speak to that and to be able to care for yourself well and to care for those relationships well.
And I've actually had partners come because they want to understand.
That's brilliant.
Especially if you start talking about moods and libido and all these things of perimenopause. I've had them come to get more information, and it's been such a light for their marriage, because if she has knowledge and understands and he has knowledge and understands, it's not him, he's not the problem. And it's really, it's not this internal problem with her either, but they can go through it together. But if you don't have any of that, then the man has no clue what's going on, so of course he's gonna think that the relationship's not going well. Like, there's so many implications, so knowledge first.
Yeah. So could you walk us through the phases of a woman's cycle and how her mood might switch from phase to phase?
Yeah, so the first half of the cycle, which is really period has ended all the way up to ovulation, there's a lower amount of hormone, but it's slowly going up. So usually a couple weeks after the periods, when women feel the best they're going to feel, And then ovulation hits, which is a spike of our hormones, which makes our ovary release the egg. And for some women, they don't even notice it, go through ovulation, no big deal. But for others, it's a tough few days. They respond to that hormone spike intensely, whether it's mood or just how they feel overall. And then that second half of the cycle, the hormones just keep going up. And for some women, that makes them feel really great, or they really have no change. But where it really hits is the hormones, you don't get pregnant, so then the hormones drop off. So you either have a whole week or a few days leading up to your period where you don't have much hormones. So you're suddenly at the highest of the month and you have none. And that is where it's hard, especially if your hormones are getting really high. The fall is a bigger fall, or if you're just more sensitive to that drop, which changes from 20s to 30s to 40s. That's why you can have a woman that's had bad PMS changes that week before, mood, all the things, and then 10 years later doesn't. Maybe it's the hormones aren't getting as high, or they're getting higher, so that's the problem. So not everyone's looks the same, which makes it a little hard. But that week before can just be almost devastating to some people, honestly.
Caroline, you said you had PMDD. Can you explain what that is, and then what you did to help navigate through that?
Yeah, you could probably explain it.
No, tell your experience.
A little better.
Yeah.
It's premenstrual
Dysphoric syndrome.
Disorder.
Excuse me.
Thank you.
You got it, girl.
So essentially, right before your period, when your hormones are kind of going crazy, you experience much more intense symptoms.
Yes.
So lots of, all your emotions feel 10 times bigger than they would normally. So instead of being a little sad, I'd be very sad. Instead of being a little frustrated, because I'm definitely more frustrated, and around that time, I get annoyed pretty easily. Instead of getting annoyed, I get very angry. So when I was younger, you and I would fight really big, or I'd have a big blow up. And then when I got married, I think I would say, like, I remember one time Carlos and my husband and I had this stupid fight. It wasn't about literally anything important. And we lived in a 1-bedroom apartment, so I couldn't leave. I couldn't go anywhere. And I got so mad at him, and I was like, I never want to hear your voice again. And I went into the bathroom and slammed the door, and he was like, okay, what? What does that even mean? I've never said anything like that to him in my life. And what does that even mean? I never want to hear your voice again. But I was so angry in that moment. I had to say something. And I ran in the bathroom, just sat in the bathroom. And then I think at some point it hit me. I walked back out and I was like, I'm so sorry, I don't know. I was just really angry about this really small thing. And I think I've gotten better at it now. So at the time I went to see my doctor and my therapist, because it was, my boss would tell me, I was working at an ice cream shop, and they would tell me something really small, and I would walk outside because everything would be red. I'd be so angry. This really isn't, the problem isn't as big as the anger that I'm experiencing. So I ended up calling a therapist and my doctor, and I think at that time my doctor put me on an anti-anxiety medication that kind of helped even that out a little bit. And then I went to a therapist who helped me walk through that, and then he recommended a certain medication to take right around that time. And then over time, I don't have that anymore. So that was about 10 years ago.
And it changes, right?
Yeah, or not 10 years ago. I guess that was about 6 years ago that was popping up, or 7 years ago. So yeah, now I still get frustrated during that time. I'm still pretty agitated. I feel like I can't get enough food. I'm very snacky. I really want sweets around that time. And I track on my phone, so I let my husband know. I'm like, hey, we're getting around there. And he's like, okay. And if I start snapping, he's like, are you in that phase? What's it called? The luteal phase? Yeah. And I'm like, yeah. So he even knows what it is now. I'm like, yes, just have some patience.
Yeah.
That's exactly what you're supposed to do. You let them in and give them knowledge, and yeah that's awesome.
So you said something interesting, and Dr. Eden, I'd love it if you speak to this. She said, that was 6 years ago, and it's changed. So talk to us about, because that's hopeful, right, for all of us. If we've had really hard periods or our moods have swung during that time. A lot of women look forward to menopause because they kind of even out.
Yeah.
So tell us why, you changed like that. Why 6 years ago that was an issue and it's not for her now?
And that's the beauty of those types of things is they do typically get better as far as like PMDD. Now, sometimes you can have a woman where it's the opposite, where she has no issue, and then 10 years later she does. But we change a lot. Like our body in our 20s to 30s, our metabolism is totally different. What our ovary is doing is different, especially the balance of progesterone and estrogen really changes a lot in our 30s too. But things also change in the fact of like our lifestyle. Usually in our 20s we're more active, and then slowly but surely we get a little more sedentary with jobs. And part of that, our weight changes, how we eat changes, and hormones don't help with that. As our progesterone changes, how we metabolize change too. So most women in our 30s, we actually gain some weight we had never had. And all of that plays a role, like all of it, diet, sleep, all of it's connected. So there is hope. Things do change and things do stabilize, you know, once you get past that perimenopause stage. I just think the hardest thing about perimenopause is no one realizes that they're in it, and no one knows how long it's gonna last. You think it's forever, you think PMDD is forever, and it's not. It does get better with time. There are things you can do, like you were saying, to try to manage it like now, but the hope is that it'll get better. Back when I was 15, every woman got put on birth control at 15 because we all had terrible periods. Well, now we know, even though we all hit puberty around that time, our hormonal puberty is until early 20s. So we really didn't all need to be on birth control from age 15 to 30 when we all started having kids. Like we really probably could have been on it for 2 or 3 years and our periods would have normalized. So we're learning a lot more. There's a lot more research about it. And from the beginning of having our first period to the last one, it's this like emotional roller coaster with hormones.
So you said something interesting, which I didn't know. You said there's puberty and then there's hormonal puberty. Explain that to us.
Yeah, so I'm sure you've heard about teenage girls like missing school, horrible periods, kind of painful, heavy, irregular periods. We call that an ovulatory cycle, so they're not ovulating. And a lot of women in the teenage years will have what we talked about, the irregular, painful periods, but they will even out. For some women it's sooner, but on average it's like 21. And that again is just like the beginning of our hormones turning on, like truly. Because a woman before puberty is very similar to a woman in menopause. Like we're very similar. You can actually get some of the same medical conditions in menopause.
Really?
Some of the same vulvar things, and not to get into the nitty gritty of that, but we really are like same as far as hormones before and then after. And then there's this like the beginning of our first period is this chaos for like 5 to 10 years, and it's chaos for that long at the end, and it really is how God designed it to be. I've had so many women ask me like, can't I just stop having periods? Like, you know, can't we just shut the hormones off and that's it and it's over? But God beautifully designed us to slowly stop making as much hormones, and it's the same in the beginning. Like it's this slow, gentle rev up, but there are side effects that come with that.
Yeah. I know when I do therapy with a woman, one of the things I always like to do is look at her developmentally. Where is she at in the life cycle and her lifespan developmentally? Because if there are hormonally certain decades where things are happening, as you mentioned earlier, that does affect our mental health and affects where we're at in our life. And so that helps me know as a therapist where I can begin to pinpoint some of the issues that she might be dealing with and some of the things that are happening during that season of a woman's life. So it's really helpful as well to look at a woman holistically.
Yeah, so in closing, what are some natural things that a woman can do to support her hormone health? And maybe what are some mental health techniques a woman can do to support the consistent change in her moods and things like that?
You would be surprised how much your diet can actually support hormone health, which is maybe the most annoying answer, but it really absolutely matters. Google it, there are estrogen-rich foods and there are progesterone-rich foods. If somebody's struggling with low progesterone towards the end of their cycle and they're having all these symptoms, they can increase the amount of progesterone-rich foods they eat. Also, just straight up an anti-inflammatory diet is so helpful for hormones and regulation. There are thousands of supplements out there about this topic, but you'd be surprised how many people just aren't even on a multivitamin. And to me, like, the way I think of it is, if you have things that need to regenerate, you have to have vitamins like the mortar to the brick to help you be as healthy as you can be. So just get started on a regular multivitamin too. 2 easy ways: diet, supplement.
Yeah, I'm on an anti-inflammatory diet, and it is made a night and day difference for my
Same,
hormones.
my husband and I as well. So good.
Good. Gosh, there's so many things you can do. I love this conversation. But obviously, for women's mental health, having a great doctor absolutely helps navigate through that. The exercise helps with your mental health. What you eat, right? If you're heavy sugar, that's gonna make your moods fluctuate. So what you eat really is important to your mental health. But having a place where you can go, where your heart is safe, and you can talk through, share your thoughts, share your emotions, so you can process through what's happening in your life, is so valuable in helping you navigate through some of those seasons in our lives as women that we find most challenging. So again, just having that comprehensive care. Having those safe places where you can go and process your life is so valuable.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And if you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. And if you have any questions about hormone health, feel free to drop them in the comment section. And I'm sure Dr. Eden and Julia would love to respond to those. So thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.